Have you ever noticed how, the older we get, the quieter the world seems to become, yet somehow the questions inside us grow louder? Maybe it's after dinner, when the house is still and the TV hums in the background. Maybe it's at the grocery store, watching another couple choosing apples together. Or maybe it's just that soft ache that says, I miss having someone to talk to every evening. If you're in your 70s and thinking about remarrying, whether you've been widowed, divorced, or simply found new companionship later in life, first let me say this: your heart is still full of life. And wanting love, comfort, or even just someone to share a laugh with is not only understandable, it's deeply human. But here's something not many people will tell you. Marriage after 70 is a whole different world. It's not about raising kids, building a home, or chasing careers anymore. It's about protecting what you've built, preserving your peace, and living the years ahead with clarity and care. That's why today, we're having a real conversation, just you and me, about the 5 biggest risks that come with remarrying after 70. Not to scare you, but to help you make decisions that honor everything you've already survived, achieved, and earned. Let's talk about what really matters, and why, sometimes, love needs a little wisdom by its side. Now picture this. You've spent decades working hard, saving up, maybe raising children, paying off a mortgage, taking care of others. And here you are now, maybe finally feeling a little more settled. Your home is yours. Your checkbook balance is out. You know where every dollar is going. You've got your retirement income, perhaps Social Security or a pension, and you've got a plan. Then someone walks into your life. They're kind. They listen. They hold your hand when no one else does. And you think, why not? I deserve a little joy. You do. But here's where the first risk starts: financial vulnerability. It's easy to assume that because you're older and wiser now, you'll keep things separate. You'll keep your bank accounts, your retirement savings, your will, all intact. But that's not always how the law sees it. Once you say, I do again, your finances and your legal rights can automatically merge, even if you had no intention of doing so. Let me tell you about Joanne. She was 74, a retired librarian, living modestly, but comfortably off her late husband's pension and Social Security survivor benefits. Then she met Bill through a community choir. They shared a love of music and morning coffee, and after a year of sweet companionship, they decided to marry. What Joanne didn't realize was that by getting remarried, she lost her eligibility for those survivor benefits. Nearly a third of her monthly income gone overnight. And because Bill had medical debt and no savings, she found herself dipping into her retirement to cover their bills. Not because Bill was dishonest, not because there wasn't love, but because the rules of the system changed the moment she became someone's wife again. And when Joanne's adult children found out that she had revised her will and added Bill's name to her property, they were devastated. Not angry at her, heartbroken, because they knew what that home meant to their family. The real tragedy? Joanne didn't know any of this would happen. She thought love would be enough. And now she spends her golden years quietly stressed about money, something she thought she had already figured out. The truth is, after 70, your financial stability isn't just a number on a paper. It's your freedom. It's your dignity. It's what lets you say yes or no without having to explain yourself to anyone. And when that stability is shaken, it's not just your bank account that suffers, it's your peace of mind. Now, let's imagine a slightly different situation. You're feeling well? Maybe you take your blood pressure pills in the morning, stretch a little, eat your oatmeal, and carry on with your day. You go to your doctor, you manage your health, and you finally have the time to focus on your own well-being, maybe for the first time in decades. Then you meet someone. They're warm, funny, a little stubborn maybe, But you like that. You start spending time together, going on walks, cooking meals. And soon you realize they need help. Just small things at first. A ride to the doctor, someone to remind them to take their medication, helping them sit down or get back up from the chair. That's the second risk. Health responsibility overload. Because by the time we reach our 70s, we've often already played the role of caregiver. To our children, our parents, maybe even a first spouse. And now, when we thought we'd earned some rest, we might be stepping right back into that role without even realizing it. Nancy, a woman I met during a senior wellness talk, told me her story with tears in her eyes. She remarried at 76. Her new husband, George, had a lovely smile and a gentle way of making her laugh. But just a year into their marriage, George had a minor stroke. Suddenly, Nancy was doing everything, helping him in and out of bed, managing his medications, organizing doctor visits, lifting more than her back could handle, and staying up at night because he couldn't sleep. All while quietly ignoring her own arthritis, skipping her own appointments, and falling behind on her own medications. She didn't resent George, she loved him. But she admitted something that stuck with me. I didn't realize that by marrying him, I was also volunteering to give up my own health. We don't always think of it that way, do we? But caregiving, especially at our age, takes a toll. It chips away at your energy, your time, and sometimes your identity. It's not selfish to say, I can't do that again. It's wise. It's honest. Because at this stage in life, your health isn't just important. It's precious. You've only got so much energy to give. And pouring all of it into someone else's needs, especially when you're still managing your own, can quietly drain you before you even realize it. Sometimes, the most loving thing you can do is ask yourself, do I really have the capacity to take this on again? And if the answer is no, that's not a failure. That's a boundary. That's self-respect. Love is beautiful. Connection is beautiful. But not when it comes at the cost of your own well-being. So if you're feeling unsure, even just a little, give yourself permission to pause. Breathe. Reflect. Because what's right for someone else might not be right for you, and that's okay. Now, let's keep going. Sometimes love comes back into your life quietly, not as fireworks or dramatic declarations, but as a warm presence. A voice that checks in, a smile at the coffee shop, and slowly you start to imagine what it might feel like to share your days with someone again. But here's something that often gets overlooked. When you remarry in your later years, you're not just entering a relationship. You're stepping into a legal agreement, one with real, far-reaching consequences. That brings us to the third risk, one most people don't even realize until it's too late. Legal complications. You may have your affairs in order. Maybe you've written a will, set up a trust, chosen your power of attorney, and made sure your home and assets are going to your children or grandchildren when the time comes. You've done the responsible thing. You've planned ahead. But here's the thing. In many states, when you remarry, your new spouse gains automatic legal rights, often overriding what's in your will. Unless you update those documents after marriage and put the right protections in place, your new husband or wife could end up inheriting more than you intended, even if that's not what either of you expected. Let me tell you about Diane. She was 81 when she met Tom. He was charming, made her laugh, and treated her like a queen. They both had adult children and modest savings. Diane had already set up her estate plan. Her small home was to go to her 2 grandchildren, along with a savings account she'd quietly built up over the years. But when she and Tom got married, she didn't realize that the laws in her state automatically entitled him to a share of her estate. And when she fell ill, Tom, now her legal next of kin, had full authority over her medical decisions. The problem? Diane's daughter knew her mother's wishes better than anyone, but she was pushed aside. Decisions were made that Diane wouldn't have agreed with. And after Diane passed, the family entered a heartbreaking legal battle over property and inheritance. Her grandchildren lost their future. Tom's children gained what Diane never intended to leave behind. And here's the hard truth. None of this happened out of malice. Tom wasn't trying to hurt anyone. It was simply the law doing what it does when we don't step in and clarify things ourselves. That's why it's so important, especially in our 70s and beyond, to think clearly and prepare carefully. Marriage isn't just romance. It's paperwork. It's legal authority. It's asset ownership and healthcare decisions and inheritance rights. And if you don't get it in writing, the system will decide for you. You might be thinking, well, we've talked about all that. We agreed to keep things separate. But talk isn't binding. Love doesn't protect your estate. Only legal documents do. And if those documents aren't updated after you marry, the courts won't honor them the way you think they will. This isn't about being cold or unromantic. It's about protecting the people you love, including your new partner. Because the more clear and honest you are from the beginning, the fewer surprises and heartaches there'll be later on. So before you say, "I do," take a moment to ask yourself, have I spoken to an attorney? Have I updated my will? Have I set clear boundaries in writing, not just in conversation? You deserve peace of mind, not legal confusion. Now let's talk about something that's a little harder to measure but just as real. Imagine waking up when you want, having your tea just the way you like it, reading in silence, walking through your day without having to explain your choices to anyone. That kind of peace, it's one of the quiet rewards of growing older. But that brings us to the fourth risk, one that sneaks in slowly: the loss of personal freedom. It's something many people don't talk about. When you're younger, marriage is about building a life together. You expect compromise. You're used to sharing space, juggling routines, adapting and adjusting. It's part of the package. But by your 70s, you've carved out a life that works for you. You've got rhythms, preferences, routines. You know what time you like to go to bed, what you enjoy watching, how you like your house kept. And adding someone new into that finely tuned routine, no matter how wonderful they are, can feel like giving up more than you expected. That's what happened with Ruth. After being widowed for nearly 5 years, she remarried at 76. At first, she loved having someone around again. Her new husband, Jerry, was a great listener. They ate dinner together, watched movies, took walks. But over time, the little things started piling up. Jerry liked the TV on all day. Ruth liked quiet. Jerry expected 3 full meals a day. Ruth had gotten used to a light lunch and simple dinners. He liked sleeping with the window open, and she hated the draft. Nothing dramatic. Just tiny adjustments day after day that started wearing her down. And when Ruth tried to bring it up, she felt guilty, as if wanting space made her ungrateful. But here's the truth. It doesn't. After 70, your freedom is hard-earned. You've spent decades bending for others, compromising, taking care of people. You've earned the right to live on your terms, to keep your home the way you like it, to eat what you want when you want, to spend your time however you choose. Marriage, even a loving one, means adjusting again. And sometimes that adjustment feels heavier than it used to. That's not to say you can't find companionship. Of course you can. But it's okay to ask, is marriage the only way to find it? Because sometimes what you really want isn't a legal partnership. It's closeness. It's conversation. It's someone to have lunch with on Sunday or walk with in the park. And those things can exist, with or without a wedding ring. You don't have to give up your freedom to feel connected. You don't have to compromise your solitude to avoid being alone. And if you're the kind of person who treasures your quiet mornings, your independence, your ability to make decisions without negotiating, that's not something to be ashamed of. That's something to protect. Because love shouldn't take your peace away. If anything, it should respect it. You've earned your independence. You've lived enough life to know what drains you and what fills you up. And you have every right to make choices that protect your comfort, your pace, and your peace of mind. There's something beautiful about reaching this stage of life. You've seen seasons come and go. You've built things, let things go, learned from mistakes, and found joy in places you never expected. And now, the most valuable thing you own isn't money or status, it's clarity. You know what matters. You know what doesn't. And that's why this last risk of remarrying after 70 might be the most surprising one of all. Because it doesn't show up right away. It often arrives quietly under the surface long after the wedding cake has been eaten and the congratulations have faded. It's the risk of financial entanglement. Now, that might sound a lot like the first risk we talked about, financial vulnerability. But this is something different. This isn't about losing access to benefits or accidentally sharing debt. This is about the slow, complicated blending of two financial lives that were never meant to merge. When you're in your 30s or 40s, combining money makes sense. You're building a future together, buying a home, maybe raising children. Your income is growing. Your debts are being paid off. It's a shared journey. But in your 70s, you're not building anymore. You're preserving. You're protecting what you've worked your whole life to earn. And when you marry someone new at this stage, especially without detailed planning, all of that careful work can quietly unravel. Let me tell you about Walter. He was 82 when he remarried. A soft-spoken man, well-liked in his community, with a tidy home, no debt, and a decent retirement income. He'd been alone for years and finally felt ready to let someone back in. His new wife, Clara, was warm and full of life. But she came with something Walter hadn't thought much about: financial baggage. Clara had medical bills, a son who needed help paying rent, and credit cards she hadn't fully paid down. At first, Walter thought, period. We'll keep things separate. I'll just help her a little here and there. But a little help turned into co-signing on a loan, then covering some unexpected hospital costs, then helping her son when his car broke down. And before long, Walter found himself dipping into the savings he'd planned to leave for his daughter. By the time he realized how much had changed, it was too late. He didn't regret marrying Clara. He just wished he'd gone into it with clearer boundaries, with firmer plans, with his eyes fully open. Because here's the thing. At this point in your life, money isn't just money. It's your safety. It's your choices. It's your ability to say yes when you want to and no when you need to. And when your finances get tangled up with someone else's, their needs, their obligations, their family, you risk losing more than dollars. You risk losing control. That's why it's so important to ask the hard questions before you make a commitment. Not just about love and values, but about debt, about assets, about adult children and expectations. It's not rude. It's responsible. Because every dollar you've saved carries a story of work, of sacrifice, of long nights and early mornings. You don't owe those stories to anyone but yourself. And if you choose to share them, it should be with intention and protection in place. That might mean getting a prenuptial agreement. It might mean speaking with a financial advisor or estate attorney. It might mean having difficult conversations with your new partner about what each of you brings to the table and what needs to stay separate. And if that sounds unromantic, consider this. The most loving thing you can do for yourself and your family is to protect the life you've worked so hard to build. That's not fear talking, that's wisdom. Now I want to pause for a second and speak to something deeper. Because maybe you've been watching this and thinking, but I'm just lonely. I don't want to be alone forever. That's okay. That's real. Loneliness in later life is nothing to be ashamed of. Wanting someone to share your days with, to talk to laugh with, to lean on, is a beautiful and human desire. But here's what I want you to remember. Companionship doesn't always require a marriage certificate. There are so many ways to stay connected. Meaningful friendships, close family bonds, community groups, volunteer work, even online groups tailored for people your age who just want someone to talk to. You'd be surprised how many people feel just like you, quietly wondering if it's too late to make a new connection. It's not. Sometimes remarriage is the right choice, but sometimes it's not. And if you feel unsure, conflicted, or just want to protect your independence, that doesn't make you cold or closed off. It makes you strong. It means you know what matters. I've spoken to many older adults, women and men, who remarried in their 70s and later quietly said, "I miss my freedom." Not because they didn't care about their spouse, but because they hadn't fully considered how much they were giving up. And that's why before you say "I do," I want to invite you to say something even more powerful to yourself. I deserve. You deserve peace. You deserve rest. You deserve love, in a form that lifts you up, not weighs you down. You've carried so much in your lifetime. You've given and nurtured and worked and endured. And now is your time, not to prove anything, not to fix anyone, but to live fully, freely, and on your terms. If marriage brings you joy and it's the right fit, with all the protections and plans in place, then embrace it. But if you're unsure, it's okay to wait. It's okay to say no. And it's more than okay to protect your time, your energy, and your heart. You don't need a ring to be whole. You don't need a partner to be complete. You are already complete, just as you are. If this video spoke to you today, I'd love to hear from you in the comments. Maybe share something you've learned or how you've made peace with your own decisions about love, marriage, or independence. Your story might just help someone else who's watching and feeling the same way. And if you found this helpful, please give the video a like and subscribe to Strong Elderly Life. We create content that's here to support you, empower you, and remind you that life doesn't stop being meaningful just because the number on your birthday cake gets bigger. Here's to peace. Here's to freedom. Here's to living your best life at any age. Thanks for spending this time with me. I'll see you again soon.